Hey Branson, how are you?
I'm fine. How about yourself?
No complaints. Doesn't do any good to complain. No one cares.
Yeah, that's what my dad used to say.
Huh?
I said that's what my dad used to say. No one could compare. Nobody cared when you complained.
Yeah. Well, I learned that to be the case as well. Hey Sydney, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. What's going on with
I
you?
was trying to get my camera on.
Huh?
I was trying to get my camera and everything set up.
Yeah. Are you at work? You have to like go in the closet at work? Is that what you do?
Yes, I'm in the filing room.
It looks like a closet or something. I wasn't quite sure. That's
Yeah.
dedication. That's where do you work?
1 to 2 is the tricky time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Where do you work?
Eastern Property Management in
Okay.
Greenville.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so that's why I cut my camera off because I sit here and take my lunch break. So
I got you.
I don't want y'all to see me eating.
Yeah, no problem. Whatever works. I'm not picky. That's for sure. Do you have decent internet there at work?
Yeah, we do have good internet here.
That's great. That makes a difference. How about you, Branson? Do you have good internet?
Yes, I have good internet.
Good. I think Greenville has pretty good internet from what I can tell. I'm in Pink Hill, which is about an hour from Greenville. And I actually paid to have my internet connected. Long, crazy story, but there was nothing here. And my neighbor, who knows all about internet stuff, or that's what he does for a living, he sets up internet for live sporting events like the Masters and the U.S. Open and stuff like that. He flies all over the country doing that. So he helped me find kind of a major cable that went right down the road we live on, which is Route 11, a main road. And then he knew the contractors who work for Spectrum laying the cable. And so the quote I got from Spectrum was $18,000 to lay the cable from the highway to our house, which is about a half a mile on our driveway. And he got it done, exact same guys, for 2,000. So I am the only person in Pink Hill on this circuit with Spectrum. I have my very own cable circuit, and it's amazingly good. It's never slow. It's generally doesn't break down or whatever. It's really kind of funny. The only it's like a novel or something. That the only guy with internet in Pink Hill or something. I don't know. It's pretty funny, but it works well. So how you doing, Dan?
Doing great. How you doing today?
Good. Did you get all my links on Slack?
I didn't see. I saw some come through on the email, but I didn't see the one on Slack.
Yeah, I put all the ones I mentioned to you. They're on Slack, and I think they're in what's called the participant channel. So you should be able to see them there. Let me know if you don't. I see them there, so I assume they're there. But for
Perfect.
some
I
reason,
appreciate that.
yeah, it doesn't work. I put in Share Tribe and Magento and a couple of things that we're talking about. I
Okay.
put on there. So hopefully that will help.
Every little bit gets me closer to the goal.
Yeah. Tell me about your other company. What do you guys do? Is that your company or you just work there or all of the above?
The real boss is getting on now.
Yeah, I understand.
So we do construction estimation. We're specifically in the signage, commercial signage trade at the moment. But throughout next year, we're going to be opening it up to about 14 other trades with an eventual 42 trades.
Wow. Now, is that when you say trades, is that like plumbers, carpenters, people like that?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it should be pretty good. It's a worldwide industry, so
Yeah,
it's
will you
only
guys
getting
be
better.
worldwide also?
Yes. Yeah, we're actually already in other countries. We have franchise teams that are opening up. Is it Australia? Those,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have franchises and they target other countries, and we have we're hoping to open up some franchise teams here in the States next year.
Wow, yeah. How do you market your franchises? How does that work?
Well, right now we're just growing them internally. We have staff and we're transitioning the people that are doing well. We transition them into franchises, and then eventually we're going to just open up to bringing in your construction experts and whatnot in the various other fields.
I got
Yeah,
you.
we actually don't advertise at all. We only will do word of mouth because it would 100% overwhelm us. We have really positive feedback from our clients. They love what we do, and we're building proprietary software. So it's still in development. It's being used internally. It hasn't been released yet to our clients. So we purposefully do not advertise because we would have more people wanting our services than we could, provide well.
Yeah, like who are your clients? What kind of companies are they, or organizations?
Right now it's large commercial signage manufacturers
Okay,
and facilitators.
I got you. Okay, cool. Well, I can say I knew you before you got famous the second time, right?
Hopefully helping us get down that path.
Yeah, you'll be one of the. I'll trot you out at some conference and say, this guy, listen to what I had to say and look what happened to him.
That works for me.
Yeah, it's all BS, but sometimes in academic circles they love to talk. It's amazing to me. They don't have much to say, but they sure love to talk. And
Well, it's the connections. I mean, one of the quotes that I saw recently was, at some point, all jobs become sales jobs. So the
yeah,
higher you go up the chain, it's all sales and it's all networking.
yeah, I think I think a lot of that's related to budget also, right? If it's big budget items, sooner or later it's going to be all connected. Small stuff maybe not, but it does seem that at the top of the pyramid it's all the same people. I've noticed that. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Dennis,
Yeah,
it's Grant. Can you make me a co-host?
I thought I did. Let me see.
I think it popped up on my screen that you made Sydney a co-host by accident.
Okay. I will. Sydney, you're gone, girl. No more. Okay, there we go.
Thank you.
You go to click on it and the name darts by and all of a sudden you've done something other than what you intended. I've noticed that happens. So sorry about that, Sydney. You don't want Grant's job. So let's see here. Yeah, I think my brother-in-law's company is called Sign Systems. Does that sound right? In Hickory? Does that name ring a bell?
I've not heard of them. Now that I have it, I'll look it up and see if they can use our services. We deal mostly in ADA wayfinding.
Okay. Let's
Are you
see
familiar
here.
with sign services?
Sign
I'm not.
Systems.
Sign systems, sorry.
Yeah, it's
Not offhand.
signsystemsnc.com. I think this is them. Yeah, this is them. Yep. And yeah, so yeah, my brother-in-law is the president, so I can connect you to him. And I'm sure, yeah, I'm just looking on their website, Mellow Mushroom, Tupelo Honey.
Those are some accounts I used to have. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, Bricks Pizza.
Mhm.
I think they have Mellow Mushrooms nationally, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I can't remember. Blue Ridge Healthcare, Western Carolina University, Pandora Stores, yada yada yada. You probably heard of them. They've been in business about 35 years, I think.
Nice. Yeah, we'll definitely look them up.
Yeah, I'll connect
What's
to
his
you.
name?
Ken Maxwell is my brother-in-law. I'll connect you to him and make the
I
introduction.
think you said Ken.
All right. Well, I see Dan Rearick has joined us, also known as CTD admin. That's his secret code name. If
Yeah, I'll change that.
he would explain that, but he'd have to kill you if he told you what it meant.
Yeah.
So I'd like to take a second here to talk about Dan and his organization, codethedream.org. I'm a huge fan. They are a nonprofit that's dedicated to helping train disadvantaged or underrepresented groups, teach them how to get jobs in the technology space, mostly related to software development, full stack stuff, as well as web stuff. And we like Accelerate Rural. Code the Dream is also involved with the NC IDEA, what they call entrepreneur ecosystem. So we're on the same team, and he'll do a much better job of explaining. But I can tell you, I saw his organization had like a demo day or something the other day, and I was standing and cheering. It is so inspiring what they are doing, and the number of people that they are opening the door to a great career, even if they're in some podunk town in Eastern North Carolina, they still have a shot at earning a good living and really growing in their career. So, with no further ado, let me introduce Dan Rearick, CEO of Code the Dream. All right, Dan, you're the man.
Thanks, Dennis. So yeah, I think what we're hoping to do today is I can tell you a little bit more background about Code the Dream. And then the main thing we wanted to do is just give you a little bit of an overview of the sorts of different technologies, different types of websites and applications that we see many new entrepreneurs and business owners needing, the sorts of things people come to us looking for. Giving you a sense of that and just some of the considerations, like some of the things to think about. Because we, at Code the Dream, one of the things that motivates us a lot is we know that like we're not all fortunate enough to have like a college roommate or somebody who was a computer science major. So there's a lot of difference. Certainly one of the big kind of hurdles that face a lot of entrepreneurs is definitely like access to capital and loans and investment that you need to scale. But for some people and for certain types of businesses, almost equally large is the lack of access to just technical expertise. So I know it varies a lot based on the type of business and what you're trying to do. But most businesses at some point, if you're trying to scale to have a large scale business, at some point, whether it's from day one when you're launching or if it's later on in order to efficiently and effectively scale your business, most companies do end up having some pretty significant tech needs at some point. So hopefully we can give you a little bit of an overview of how we think about some of those things. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think one thing I'll share with the group. So in our last class, we did a survey about access to technology as one of our questions. And out of I think we had 16 teams in that cohort, 14 of them did not have technical expertise access. In other words, they didn't have anybody. And so a lot of the stuff that they had done, they had just kind of winged it or guessed or but it was amazing to me that they're in online businesses, yet they don't have any help with technology. So it's a real problem in Eastern North Carolina. I can say that.
Yep. And I don't know, what do you guys, Dennis, what do you think? Like, is it worth doing quick intros now, or maybe we could just save it till questions at the end? What's the best?
Go ahead with the intros. That's fine. If you want to do that, see who's here, if that helps you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, maybe if you guys could just go around quick, like name and where you're at, and just the one sentence, like what your business is or what you're looking to do.
Yeah. Once you guys start, Rachel and Dan.
I'm Rachel and Dan, and we are here for Country Kitchen. It's going to be a commercial shared kitchen space. We are going to offer a large variety of services for multiple entrepreneurs.
Our tech requirements are we need a marketplace as well as delivery control.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Doug, you want to go next? On my screen, you come up.
All right, hi, I'm Doug Thomas. I'm making a modular martial arts weapons kit that'll be sold primarily on online. And so I would need help with developing my webpage and online marketing.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay. Quandell, you next, I think.
Hello, Quandell Chanel, Freedom Hill brand. We are an apparel accessories company that is presently totally online using Shopify, Printful's drop shipping entity. Looking to definitely gain some technical support and being able to increase sales, not only to move from there to hopefully be able to move to more of hand-to-hand or shop sales.
How long have you been doing it, Quandell?
2 years.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep,
Sydney,
working
I
full
have-
time.
Yeah,
Working full time and doing this somewhat part time.
man, hardcore. All right, Sydney.
Hi, I'm Sydney Alligood, and I could use all the technology advice. So my idea is a fresh idea. It's going to be a mobile app that connects consumers to locations of food trucks, as well as be able to order through them. And long-term big vision is I want it to be like an all-inclusive platform for the food truck community with resources and all kinds of other things in the very future. But the original premise is to connect consumers to food trucks and be able to order through the app.
And where are you located?
I'm in Greenville, NC.
Okay.
Yeah, almost everybody in our class, with exception of a couple, are basically Eastern North Carolina. Branson Edwards, I have you next.
I'm here in Ayden, North Carolina, but based out of Greenville. I run a digital content company, and we do everything from working with artists doing music production to helping market and distribute them. And we use a digital radio as the means of getting them out. And I'm trying to find out how to market the radio station around the world and find out how to also bring in businesses that's local to advertise on the radio station.
Got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Catherine Poor, you're next, as far as I know.
Hi, so we're having Wi-Fi problems right now, so I hope you can hear us, but
We
we're
can hear you.
Alignment Dancewear, and we make custom and ready-to-ship dancewear products. And currently our biggest focus is including products that are both size inclusive and skin tone inclusive. So we're trying to make a line of skin tone fabrics by hand dyeing the materials, because we've identified that that's a problem in the dance industry, and the dance industry is really expanding to be a lot more inclusive of who can become a professional. So those are our projects for right now that we're working on.
Okay, and you've been doing this for a couple of years, right?
Yes, I've been doing this for about 4 years, but we've only been launched officially for a year.
Okay. Okay, Chris Neal, I think, is next. If he's there. Chris, are you there? Okay, well, we'll come back to Chris. Dianne Stadiem. Hey, Dianne. If she can hear me or not.
I'm here, Dennis.
Okay, there's Chris.
What you want to know?
Tell us what you're doing, what your business is.
I thought we did that yesterday.
No, well, we do it every day, Chris, because just to bug you and make you mad.
Oh, okay. We own a storefront that's a downtown fresh market, and we farm, and everything we do is produce, and off the farm goes to the wholesale side and to our own market. But our market carries North Carolina products along with jams, jellies, apparel, and produce, ice cream, anything food-wise is made in North Carolina. I call it fun food.
Okay. I'll go back to Dianne Stadiem. Are you there, Dianne?
Yes, I am.
Hi. Tell us what you do.
I'm actually work in the office and in merchandising at H Stadium. This is a department store in downtown Kinston, and we have recently leased part of the space in our store to artisans. We're very excited. The new venture is called Artisans at Tobacco Row.
Cool.
And yes, so we want to be able to include that new venture in our marketing, and are just looking for new ways to be able to do that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's very exciting.
Thank you.
Did I miss anyone along the way? One thing I do want to fill on Chris Neal, just to make it clear, Chris has a store in downtown Goldsboro that sells produce and other items, and he has a 90-acre farm near Goldsboro and grows butter beans. Whatever the hell butter beans are, I guess we call them lima beans where I'm from, but at any rate, I did want to make sure you knew there are two different things that Chris is talking about, both his store and his farm. I think that's everybody, unless if I miss somebody, please holler, but I think that's right.
Great. Thank you guys that's helpful to know where folks are coming from. So I have, hopefully it's not too boring, but I've got like a quick little presentation I can share. Let me see if I can share my screen. Are you guys able to see that?
Yeah.
Great. So I'll give you a little bit of overview of Code the Dream, just so you know kind of what we do, where we're coming from, and then we can go over a little bit more about what we tend to see, some of the range of needs that entrepreneurs have. And Dennis and others, feel free to chime in with questions, and then hopefully we'll have plenty of time if folks have specific questions too at the end. I think we should have lots of time to talk about any specific questions folks have regarding their business and what sort of decisions you're facing. So as Dennis said, Code the Dream, we are we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we have this, what we think is an interesting, innovative model where we train people up from diverse low-income backgrounds in software development. And then after they start with free classes with us, but then after they get through all the classes, those folks are eligible to then come on and work as, do an apprenticeship with us. So then they come on to what we call Code the Dream Labs, or CTD Labs. And in CTD Labs, we're always aiming for this kind of win-win experience where people get real world experience that they need to then launch their careers, meaning to go, and for most people, that means going and taking that job at IBM or another tech company as a software developer. But they get that experience by developing apps for lots of other partner organizations and for entrepreneurs. So I guess one thing to be clear about is, so we are a nonprofit, but we do also function basically as kind of a mission-driven software development shop. So we do really, why I'll get into this a lot more in a minute, but we do everything from basic websites to pretty advanced web and mobile applications. And we do, even though we're a nonprofit, we do that. We're trying to be somewhat close to being self-sustaining. So we do charge for that work generally. There are some occasions, as Dennis mentioned, NCIDEA, which is a great North Carolina foundation that supports entrepreneurs, has also provided us some support where we can do some subsidized work for entrepreneurs around the state. And so for at least smaller projects, that can be a substantial help to if you have work that you need help with, and we talk about it and it seems like something that it might be a good fit. That's also a possibility. So I can share more details about this too, but big picture, like here today, just here to give you an overview, but longer term, happy to keep conversations going. We do have support from NCIDEA to do free consultations, like more in-depth consultations with entrepreneurs around the state over the next year. And then, as I just mentioned a second ago, we also have a very small but not insignificant amount of support from NCIDEA to allow us to actually build out some websites or the beginnings of some applications for folks. But I'll provide a little more detail about that in a minute. So we do this little graphic we've got here. One thing that's interesting about our work is we do a really wide range of work on behalf of other nonprofits, and a lot of that is for low-income families. But then another big chunk of our work is supporting entrepreneurs and helping them get started. So again, the range of what we do is pretty huge. It's everything from basic websites that could take us a couple weeks to build to big complex web or mobile applications where the client might be like Duke, UNC, or NC State universities, or state or federal government, or bigger corporations. So it's a really wide range. Some of those projects, the bigger projects, could take a year or more to build. In general, I think it's helpful for most folks and we usually think about the types of needs that we see in kind of three broad categories. What we could call websites, web applications, and mobile apps. These are a little bit, there's some gray area between all these. It's not actually necessarily quite as clear cut as these three categories, but these three categories kind of cover most of what we see. I guess I should mention, I mean, there are other forms of software for sure. Like, I mean, especially back in the day, there was lots of software that had nothing to do with the internet at all. Like you might have software that just ran locally on a machine in your office, but we don't specialize in that. So if you have questions about that, I can try to answer, but it's not kind of our main specialty. So I'll give you an idea of how these categories kind of break down, what sorts of things fall within each one, and then also a little bit of an idea of just the scale of the complexity, that both the time and as well the cost that can go along with them. Websites, I mean, I think everybody's familiar with websites. Most of you are probably familiar with a lot of the different kind of easier out of the box options you have, kind of frameworks that you can use to build a website. Some of the biggest ones being Squarespace, WordPress, Wix. And for a lot of folks, while most people don't consider that's not really programming or coding, it definitely can be the right option for lots of folks, as certainly Shopify and other e-commerce options as well. One thing that I guess I'll go ahead and show you a couple examples of websites that we've built just to give you an idea. So like this is an example of a health food store. I think they're in Warrenton. That we built there, just a basic site for e-commerce. They're in Weldon, North Carolina. And this is just a simple site based on WordPress. And so we do a fair amount of WordPress. WordPress is pretty highly customizable, very commonly used, but is not, well, we can talk more details later about when there's oftentimes it's not super clear whether the best option for folks would be WordPress or Shopify. There's a WordPress is kind of a all-purpose great tool for building websites, but then if your needs are just much more honed on the e-commerce side, then it's not always the best for you. Another example of just like a little bit more complex website is this is one we built for the Durham Public Schools Foundation for the COVID pandemic. It allows people to find all the different resources they might need depending on whether they're accessing this because they're a parent or a student or a teacher. So it's got this cool functionality where you can really hone in from a really wide set of possible resources and hone in on what it is specifically that you need. So this is an example of a site that is again built with WordPress, but did have a little bit more, a little bit of custom software development involved with it. So let me go back to, I will say again that the line between web applications and what I'm calling websites it is kind of a gray area. It's technically even if you build a website even if you have a Shopify site or a WordPress based site, for example, those are also in a sense web applications. They're software applications that run in a browser window on the web. But of course, the big distinguishing factor here is that you're using an existing platform to kind of you're not writing a bunch of custom code. Whereas there are plenty of web applications where you are writing a lot of custom code, where pretty much everything is built from scratch. And this is something that kind of trips a lot of people up when talking to software developers. Is you'll hear software developers talk about web apps versus mobile apps or native apps all the time. And a lot of people are like, well, what do you mean web apps? You mean just a website? And the difference is just really whether or not someone had to code up, whether they had to program all the functionality and oftentimes the appearance of it themselves. And that's, for example, if you think about even just Google, like the Google homepage, or you think about Facebook when you access it on like from the browser, from Chrome or Safari, for example, on your laptop, those are examples of super complex web applications where, yes, Facebook is a website, but it's also a web application that a company spent billions of dollars building out custom features and how everything works about it. So it's kind of at the other end of the spectrum from, a basic website that maybe just has a about page and a contact page and that sort of thing. So the reason that we often, different reasons that we see people coming to us needing custom built web applications, kind of break them down again into three categories. A lot of times it's because what the organization or the company wants is not something that you'd be able to build using WordPress or Squarespace, because oftentimes you're trying to offer a particular service through the site itself. So you're not just offering information about your company, and you're not just offering the ability to maybe make a purchase, but you need to actually be able to offer a service, for example, through the site. And so that's like, some of these are just so common that it seems silly to even mention it. But like, for example, eBay or Amazon or like I said, Facebook, Google, these are all applications where the company started by building a web application. They had software developers build out fully featured website that was custom built for what they wanted people to be able to do on their site. And that was the basis for their company. We do often see folks that come to us too, though, that are where the company may be, I mean, it could be anything from an apparel company to a restaurant even, where nothing about what the customer experiences really requires a custom built piece of software, but the functioning, the owner of the business really feels like, oh, we could just run this business a lot more effectively, a lot more smoothly with a custom piece of software that helps us manage some unique thing about our business. More often than not, we try to dissuade people from building this type of software early on in a business. Usually, I mean, it can be a big investment, and I don't know, even if it feels like kind of limping along, usually if you've got to keep track of inventory, for example, we'd usually strongly suggest you just go with some sort of off-the-shelf current inventory system. And then at some point, if your inventory needs are really so different, or something about your workflow is so different from other companies or from the way those existing softwares work, then once you're, a few $1 million company, then you could build out the system that really is perfect for the way you run your business. But still want to mention that as a possibility. And then the third category that is also fairly common is basically the top two categories combined. And that's where you are offering a product or a service that people are able to access through the web, and you want to be able to track the way you offer that, or run everything else about your business through that same platform. And I won't show it to you because most of it's behind a paywall, but the one example of that is this company Garbage Gears, which was also originally based in Eastern North Carolina. For what they wanted is they're essentially a private trash collection company, and they wanted, they were running a trash collection company already, but they were spending, I believe, $600 a month just to license the software that allowed them to figure out the route they needed to run to pick up the trash each day and to bill all their customers and everything. So basically, in the end, they ended up doing some calculations and realized, okay, we really are at the scale where we would be much better off if we just paid Code the Dream to come in and build out that software for us so that we could do all that and stop paying the $600 a month in licensing. So the last thing I'll say on this is just the approximate costs. These are really huge ranges, I know, but in general, it's in the short term, it's almost always cheaper, of course, to just use an off-the-shelf or out-of-the-box software solution. Most of the custom web applications that we develop take us between 3 to 6 months to get the first version out there, and $10,000 to $50,000 is I know it's a wide range, but it's usually somewhere in that range, depending on how complex it is. So it ain't cheap, but that's unfortunately that's much cheaper than most other, like a lot of software development shops don't really do anything for less than like 1 to 200,000. So just to hopefully it's helpful to give you guys a sense of it. And then lastly, native mobile apps. These are the apps that you download directly to use on your phone from the Apple iPhone store or from the Google Play Store. And oftentimes there's a lot of overlap in the functionality that people want out of a mobile app compared to the web applications. We pretty regularly try to suggest to people that they start with, if they don't already have a web application, that they start with a web application before moving to building out a full mobile app. And that's in part because, unfortunately, building out a mobile app is even another significant step up usually in terms of time and complexity. Part of that is because you're basically having to build for at least 2 different platforms, because Apple and Android have differences in how they run these applications. So generally, the main reasons we suggest that people go, or the best reasons that we see, like the real reasons where people really need a mobile app, are often because they need to really heavily use the phone itself. They need to use the GPS coordinates. Like for example, for keeping track of where all the food trucks are. That's a classic example of something that doesn't necessarily have to be a mobile app, but it definitely lends itself to that because it's so geolocation heavy. Then there's also plenty of other apps, like if you have any sort of fitness app, those sorts of apps that use like the accelerometer, even like step counting and stuff like that, or even using the flashlight or the camera on a phone. Those all tend to lend themselves more towards mobile apps too. But the flip side of that is if you don't need any of that and you're still thinking about a mobile app, we do often try to gently suggest to people, like, well, just make sure this isn't just kind of a vanity project, because a lot of companies get into this mindset like, oh, like it's like having their own mobile app is like reaching the big time or something, like, and that's an expensive way to to reach the big time. So we do often suggest that people really think hard before they invest in a mobile app. But there are definitely times where it makes sense. I mean, you guys probably all use mobile apps that really have to be mobile apps every day. Like Uber and Lyft are great examples. I mean, those simply wouldn't work any other way. Things like Grubhub, Facebook, those are interesting examples where much of what they do, you could get by without having a mobile app. But once you get to a certain scale, you do want that sort of, that ease of being able to do it directly on a native mobile interface. One other big factor that we suggest people think about is a big pro and con of mobile apps is that if somebody is just going to use your service once, I guess we'll start off with the con. If somebody's just going to use your service once, or they may only use it very occasionally, oftentimes that's a big red flag. Like, hey, maybe mobile app isn't right for you, because there's that significant barrier to entry where before somebody, even if all you have is a mobile app, if you're going to require somebody to go find your app on an app store and download it onto their phone, that takes some inertia. There's a lot of inertia to get over, and people having to go out and do all that. So on the other hand, if you're like Uber or Grubhub, maybe you're somebody who during the pandemic you've been getting food delivered a lot, where someone would be coming back to your service over and over again, that's a great example of where a mobile app might be great, because they download it knowing that they're going to use it over and over again. And then the mere fact that it is already downloaded on their phone, it's almost like an incentive to keep using it. So that's some of what to think about with web apps versus mobile apps. Again, on the cost side, it's rough. We really rarely see mobile apps that we could build for anything less than $25,000, and we often see them a lot bigger than that. We had somebody come to us about a year ago that wanted to build out basically a competitor to Uber and Lyft, and they had some really good ideas, but the hard part was that they insisted that they really needed every single feature that Uber and Lyft currently have, and then wanted to build some more on top of that. And we're like, well, that actually your ideas do sound pretty compelling, but I don't think there's any software developer who could build you that for under a few $100,000. So it's tough. Things to think about, or just some questions to ask yourself, which definitely aren't rocket science, but are really helpful, is just thinking really clearly about why you need a website or an app, and specifically who your main audiences are and what you want them to do. So in many cases, of course, your audience may be your customer directly, and you want them to buy something through your site, for example. But that's not, of course, that's not always the case. I mean, or you may have multiple customers or multiple revenue streams. For example, you could have an advertising-based business like a radio station, for example. Like a radio station, you have your listeners, right? But then of course, you also the listeners in most cases are not the ones actually paying the bills, right? That would be your advertisers. So you need to think about both and what you want both sets of people to be able to do. And then the single key thing, if there's one thing that we talk about today that hopefully is helpful, is just this concept of a minimally viable product, and really the importance, if you're going to, especially if you're going to engage in any custom software development, whether that's web or mobile apps, just thinking as clearly as possible about what are the least number of essential features, like the simplest thing you could build that still brings enough value to at least some of your customers that they would use it or they would come back for it. And that is super, super important for at least two big reasons. One being time and one being cost. Time meaning that you can actually test something out and then keep iterating and see if it's working, rather than the old school method of software development where people used to often just hand somebody a 50-page list of specs and say, hey, can you build this? And the developer would say, sure, okay, I'll see you in 18 months or something. And then, then like 18 months and $250,000 later, you figure out, oh, this doesn't actually quite work. Or even sometimes maybe it would have worked 18 months ago, but things have changed in the interim. So that's probably the single biggest piece of advice. I know it sounds like there's probably some of you for whom a lot of this may not apply at this moment, but if you can think about how to make it as narrow as possible, that can be super helpful. Does anybody have any, I know that was a lot of
I have a couple of comments, I guess, that I'll make. This is Dennis. I think that for everyone in this class, Dan represents a resource that he covered quite a few items, but my guess is that a consult with his team with what you're working on or you're thinking about will help you a great deal in figuring out what to do when. And this idea of MVP, of minimally viable product, really works in a couple of different ways. Not only does it work from the point of view of getting some customers, to kind of see if it works, but it also works if you build a minimum viable product to demonstrate to investors or other groups that you might be trying to talk into working with you or convince you that it's a viable path. So the MVP can be used in a number of ways. And one of the things that MVP helps, I think, more than anything else, is it'll help you inform which format you should focus on, whether you should focus on a web app or you should focus on a mobile app. You may have it in your mind a certain path forward, but if you do take the time to visit with Dan's group and go through this process, I think you'll be much better informed as to what you should do in what order and what the relative cost of those different options are. So I would encourage everyone in this class, no matter what you're thinking of, to kind of get on that path of what's my way forward? What should I be focusing on? I think this is a golden opportunity for everybody to narrow that down.
Yeah, and I think maybe one other thing to add to that I know I didn't make clear is that there is part of that path towards the MVP that Dennis was just alluding to, and some of that clarity of thought that can come with it can actually come without actually building the MVP, which is kind of great. It's more about the thinking process, and that can be as simple as if you, for example, you think you need a mobile app, just going ahead, or or a web app, but I mean, mobile apps is really important. You do this, going ahead and just drawing out some rectangles on some pieces of paper, and what are the main things that would need to be on these different screens, and what's kind of the path that a user would take, and what are the things that maybe you could cut out of the first version. So that clarity of thinking that can come without even hiring anyone or forking over any money can be really invaluable. And then there is this intermediate step that some of you have probably heard. You've probably all heard people talk about mock-ups. Maybe some of you have also heard people describe them as wireframes. It basically means the same thing, especially in the mobile app world. People often talk about wireframes, and that all it is just usually what it is it's just a fancy term for mock-ups, like meaning like, let's go ahead and make something that looks like what the mobile app would look like without building out any of the functionality yet. And that's something that you can do a decent job yourself. I mean, get a little practice. There's a number of tools. One of them is called Figma. There's probably a half dozen good different tools out there where you can build things that look like, they've got all the buttons and everything. You can choose your color schemes and go ahead and build what looks like a mobile app. It just doesn't have anything behind the facade yet. But that can also be super helpful, both for the clarity of thinking, as well as in some cases, I mean, this varies a lot. So don't go and claim that I said this would always work, but in some cases, it can be a very helpful step with investors. There are certain ideas where showing investors just the wireframe or the mock-ups of what you plan on doing, it can be a big step forward.
Yeah, I think, and the other thing to realize in Dan's case and his company's case, they've met with lots of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, lots of groups. So you also get the benefit of quite a lot of experience, some of which might apply to you and save you some cycles in going forward. I think that's another thing that Dan isn't really mentioning, but I think is a real value to working with a group like his. Any questions, anybody?
I do have a question.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask, I do have a wireframe that I made myself, and I've even done I'm the one with the food trucking idea and everything. I've even wrote out what I plan, what features, because my dreams are huge, for the platform. I want to work a website eventually, a whole online platform that's more immersive to the entire food truck community. But I have everything in steps of, this is the MVP, this is what I want to start off with, and I have what features I want to incorporate down the road. So I would love to know how to set up a consultation to talk through, get pricing for features, because I know the more features, the more expensive and everything. But I did want to see how I could do a consultation.
Yep. Yeah. So you can do one of a couple things. So you can reach out to us, and so you can also have my email address, which is not on here. Mine is just dan@codethedream.org. So either reach out to me at dan@codethedream.org or our operations manager, Alex, at alex@codethedream.org. Or you can also just submit through the services page on our website. If you just go to codethedream.org and click on services, there's a simple little form there that you can fill out. So either one of those is fine. Mention whether it's via email or in the form, which will eventually generate an email as well. Mention that you're with Dennis and part of the Accelerate Rural cohort. So that way we'll remember that, because we should, for just to be clear, I think as long as it sounds like what you want to do the consultation about is something that we feel like we have something to say, or could hopefully be at least moderately helpful, then we're happy to do those. so provide us a little bit of information, because we do get quite a few requests. Provide us a little bit of information so we can at least make sure we're not wasting your time or something. Certainly this question, the food truck related question, that's definitely one that, I mean, we could definitely talk about that. So yeah, reach out about that. In terms, just to be clear, the one thing where I want to make sure I don't set up like false expectations or is in terms of so I mentioned NCIDEA has provided us a little bit of funding to subsidize support for applications needed or websites needed by entrepreneurs in North Carolina. Just to be clear, I think we only have, I want to say 10, I think we can do up to 10 projects where each one is subsidized at $5,000 or $6,000. So that's 10 for the whole state of North Carolina over the next year. And it's the other thing to know is if you just need a basic WordPress site that could cover the whole cost of your site. So there are some people for whom we are able to just build something for free, essentially. But that is a fairly competitive process since NCID has only funded us to do a small number of them. And then if it is a more complex web or mobile app, that may get you the first $5,000, but if it's only getting you the first $5,000 of a $50,000 project, obviously that's still a lot to think about.
Yeah, well, I think that, even getting to that point where you even know what your needs are would be really helpful for this group, right? So the first step is to really see where you are and then to lay out a path and understand what would be needed and what those costs would be. All that's really valuable, Dan, to this group, I would believe.
Yep.
Anyone else?
One thing I'll just say really quick about the food truck thing. You've probably already looked at this. I would probably try to check around as much as you can to make sure that there aren't applications that are basically that can be like white labeled or where you can basically like take an existing application that somebody's built and start with that and put your branding on it and everything, or modify it, just because I know it is a use case that people have thought a lot about, but I don't know. I'm not actually sure that there is such a thing, but it would be something worth looking at.
Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts from the group?
Dan, I've got a question. All of everybody here has the core functions. That's what they're doing, but everybody's going to also have the support functions. They're going to need billing, subscription services, help services. Is there any package that Code the Dream has put together to broadly handle those support services for participants? So instead of everybody having to individually generate their subscription service, their help files, their online chat systems, the download of the products, is there any grouped function that everybody could participate with? Yeah, a plugin, API, etc.
Yeah, so nothing that we've developed, and there are sometimes, we have developed a few specific tools that can then be licensed out to people and everything, but what you're talking about, I think, is more of like a global sort of, well, I guess depending on the business, it sits somewhere in between like, like QuickBooks Online and HubSpot, a number of different, there's a number of different services depending on your business model. Do you think so the short answer is no, unfortunately we don't have that. The why we don't have it is a combination of bandwidth and the fact that each business does tend to be just different enough that it's hard for us to create something that we're confident is valuable to a wide enough, like a critical mass of people. Even just running our own operations, we see the same issue where we're cobbling together, like certain functions that are through QuickBooks, certain functions that are essentially handled through our website, which is actually our main website is just built off WordPress. So we have certain things like subscriptions to newsletters and stuff like that that are handled just through a WordPress plugin. But yeah, so I think we're kind of all in this world of cobbling things together one way or another. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, that's perfect. I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something because we're in that boat now. We have our core functions, but now we have to add the entire support layer, and that's taking as long as some of the support functions. One other thing I'd like to mention is, especially Sydney had mentioned it, the wireframing. From our own experiences, this is absolutely critical. Where we've seen the most amount of money spent for very little return is everybody draws out their core ideas and they skip the hard stuff. And it's like, okay, I've got these 3 core ideas, but how do I do this one becomes this big block of a miracle happens here. And that missing block of information is going to cost you more money than the rest of the app put together. So definitely don't, if it's a hard question for you, it's an impossible one for the programmers to try to interpret what you're trying to say. So the wireframing is absolutely critical, and it's critical to answer all of those questions and show the flow through the entire process.
Yep, I agree.
All right, well, thank you, Dan. Really appreciate you coming on today. I think that's it for today, unless there's some final questions. Dan we'll put up that contact thing again. Doug, you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to know, like if you do a website or web app or whatever, what kind of, do y'all have any ongoing support for that? So like if needs change, or do you have to kind of start all over with your services?
Yeah, we do. Well, it depends. For a basic website that we build in WordPress, for example, we have fairly affordable ongoing maintenance plans. I mean, you're talking, I'd have to look at where everything stands. Depending on the level of support you need, it might be like $1,000 a year or something like that. This is actually, it's a good question too, because I didn't mention this. It does, I mean, of course, the more, if you're talking about a more like a big custom web application, or especially a mobile application, that's a really important question to ask anybody you talk to, because on the mobile application side, I mean, you might, unfortunately, it's not a case where you just build it and then you, oh great, I've got the mobile app I'm going to use for the next decade. Like, you're probably going to have somebody making at least some updates that you may not even see any difference to the user, but they're different software libraries that are being used in the background. Those things those little changes might have to be made depending on the scope of it, even on a monthly basis. So with a mobile app, you should usually probably budget in, it's very hard to generalize, but at least a few $1,000s a year just to keep it running. But on the other side, if, Doug, for your purposes, you're talking more about a basic website that can be built in WordPress, for example, yeah, it's there. You're talking about more like a few $100 to $1,000 a year.
I think that's a really important consideration, because getting it built is important, but getting it going, keeping it going is critical, because that's going to be your primary revenue source in most cases. So it's a really good question, Doug. Thanks for asking that. Any other questions, thoughts? All right, well, thank you, Dan, very much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it. And I'll post that contact information so that everyone has it. And thank you all very much. We'll meet again tomorrow.